Right before we jump into this video, if you'd like me to send you a free guide to capturing motion in low-light situations, just look for this orange box over on phronosphoto.com, put your name, email address in it, hit send it, and I'm going to send you that guide for free. Jared Polin, phronosphoto.com, and this is a review of the Tamron 28 to 300mm f4 to 7.1. This is a compact to kind of super zoom lens, kind of one of those one lens to rule them all style lenses, because you go from 28 to 300 in a super compact design. Now, of course, there's pros and cons to something being so small and so light and not having the highest aperture, but honestly, this is a lens that someone's gonna buy who isn't looking to be a pro photographer. They just want to be able to cover the birthday party at 28mm and their kid playing soccer or something else out in the field at 300mm and get better pictures than their cell phone is going to get. Now, before I get into the details and specs of the lens, let me tell you what I photographed. I took it out into the park to photograph a kid named Asher, really cute 2.5-year-old that just likes to tool around on his little bike in the park. He now poses for me. Unlike the first time, it took him about 30 minutes to get used to me. Now he looks at me, he smiles, and he poses for the camera. And then when I show him the pictures, he smiles, which is pretty cool. So I used it out in the park. Then I took it out to a field hockey match at St. Joseph's University to see how it could do out there. And I didn't have high hopes for it, but I was pleasantly surprised when I got the pictures back into the computer. Now, I did use two different cameras. I used the Sony A1, which is kind of like overkill for this type of lens, but then I broke out the Sony A7 IV because that is a more affordable, lower-end style Sony camera that you might find this lens on. So let's talk about the lens itself and how it feels. When you pick it up, you might expect this to feel cheaper, but it actually has slight amount of heft, and I'm not talking like it feels heavy, it just feels substantial, meaning not super plasticky and super cheap like some of the older Tamron or other third-party lenses way back in the day that were absolutely pretty cheap. Now, you have a lens hood right here. If you're new to photography, you always take your lens hood off when you're shooting and you put it on like this. One, it looks better. It makes you look kind of not like an amateur, because anytime your lens hood is the other way, you kind of look like an amateur. It also cuts down on glare and flare that might come in and hit the front element. Now, speaking of the front element, you can put a 67mm filter on this. You have a 67mm lens cap, so if you ever lose this, you know to get a 67mm one, but you also don't need to buy filters for a lens like this. I don't recommend it. Some stores might try to sell you a basic UV filter. I highly suggest you don't get it unless you find yourself on the beach all the time or in extreme environments where you might want to protect the front element just a little bit. I personally don't put a filter on any of my lenses, even the most expensive lenses that I have. Moving around to the outside of the lens, you've got your zoom ring right here. You'll notice that it's a little tighter as you start to zoom and get to the end, and it's smoother throughout the middle. There's like a little jerk at the end of it. It's not a big deal. It's smooth. This is your 300. This is your 28. Now, if we did notice that if you put it up to 300 and you hold it and you give it a little jiggle, because your money doesn't jiggle, it folds, you can see that it retracts. It goes flaccid or limp, as they like to say. It doesn't stay elongated or erect. That's if you're walking. So why is that important? Because a lot of people, when they're walking or have it around their neck, you're gonna see that it's going to extend. It's not that big of a deal. They do have a lock on it. There is a lock switch, but you don't lock it on the outside portion. You lock it when it is down like this. So you lock it, and now you will get no shake, you will get no jiggle, you will get no money that's folding because it's locked. So you also have one custom button here that you can set as a custom function button when you connect it to your camera. And you also have a manual ring right here if you ever get into manual focusing, which you probably never will get into manual focusing. You'll notice a USB-C port right here. That's for updating firmware if they put out new firmware for this lens. So it's pretty easy to update by plugging in right there. And other than that, that is the outside of this lens. Now, this is a VC lens, which means vibration compensation. So you do have vibration compensation built into this. Now, if you do jiggle it, a little bit, you might hear some floating elements. That is normal. When it's on the camera and there's power going to the lens, those elements lock into place and you don't have to worry about any of that jiggle. Now, in terms of weight, this lens weighs in at 1.3 pounds or 610 grams, which is a quarter pounder with cheese lighter than Tamron's 50 to 300, which is right here. There's your 50 to 300, and you can see this is your 28 to 300 right here. They're basically the same size, and people are gonna wonder, well, why would I get something like this when I can have more of a mega zoom, and they're very similarly priced? And the answer to that I will get to at the very end of this video, but I do want to jump into some of these photos here so we can start to see the image quality. Now, out in the park, I know that when you're shooting at f4 or you zoom out and you go to 7.1, because this is a variable aperture lens, meaning at 28 millimeters, you're at f4. When you zoom all the way out to the end, you're at 7.1 because it's a variable aperture lens. If you want a continuous aperture, like a 70 to 180 Tamron 2.8, you're going to be spending $1,500, $1,600 for more expensive lenses. Keep that in mind. There is always a trade-off for size and value, and you get what you pay for. But in most situations, for the people that are looking for this lens, you're going to be pretty happy with the results. I know, here's a little secret, you're going to throw it on your camera and you're just going to shoot in auto. That's really what most people are going to do with this, and so that is what it is. You're going to get better results than your phone. Now let's look at this picture right here. I'm at 90 millimeters and I'm at f6.3. You can see that because it's f6.3 and I'm not zoomed all the way out, we're not compressing the background as much. Remember, when you are wider, say 28 millimeters, and a subject is further away from you, you're not going to get deep background blur. You know how you put portrait mode on your phone? There is a way that you can do that with a lens like this without having to use digital portrait blur, because let me show you this. Look at this one right here. This is at 300 millimeters. I'm further away from Asher, so I could zoom into 300 millimeters, which, look at the background. There's people sitting on the bench back there, but you can't even see them because they're obliterated. If you take one tip from this video, it's use the longer end of the zoom rather than the wider end when it comes to taking portraits. Let me jump in here real quick because I want to show you this photo right here, edited with Pack 4, starting with Blue's Clues, followed by Brooklyn, which looks incredible out there, C41, Copper Tone, Kaleidoscope, Saltwater Taffy, Thick, and Wet Hot American Summer. From Pack 3, I want to show you Mount Airy, as well as November Rain. These look incredible as well. But check this out. All new and exclusive to Pack 4, we have 4 custom adaptive Lightroom presets. We've got X1, which is face enhance. We've got X2, which is full body. X3 is eye enhance only, as well as X4, which is background blur. So look, if you want to speed up your raw workflow, give yourself a great starting point, or you're just tired of other people's presets sucking, as you can see, ours don't suck. We created 14 all-new custom Lightroom presets that you can check out right now at froknowsphoto.com/Pack 4. While you're over there, you can play with the sliders to see the befores and the afters, and if you decide to pick them up right now, they're currently on sale. Or if you want to save even more, you can get the Grand Slam bundle that includes Pack 1, 2, 3, as well as 4. Now, let's get back to the video. I wanted to get some wider shots, more at 28 millimeters or 35 millimeters of Asher when he's near the fence, and check this out. He's by the fence right here, and even his little bicycle is out of focus, and I'm at 4.5. I'm at 33 millimeters. The key is you fill the frame or you get closer. The closer to the subject that you get when you're shooting wider, the more the background's going to blow out. But like the first picture I showed you right here, I'm not really close, which means the background's not going to be as out of focus. All right, now we got that out of the way. I want to move back to those 300 millimeter portraits to look at the quality of the lens. I went with a black and white here because I absolutely loved the way that the black and white looked here. As we zoom in on Asher's face, the eyes look nice and sharp to me. I'm happy with the results that I got out of this. I didn't have high expectations for a 28 to 300. You know, it's one of those basic lenses, but if you know what you're doing, you can get fantastic results. And if you take the tips from this video, you might be able to get similar results as well. Now let's continue on with more portraits. This time I went ahead and went vertical. I'm at 240 millimeters. I went full frame vertical, top to bottom. He's in the shade. There's sun in the background. We zoom in on his face. He's looking nice and sharp. He's looking nice and happy, in my opinion, and I'm happy with the results that I'm getting. If you looked at these pictures and you didn't know what lens it was shot with, no one's gonna be like, did you shoot that with a super cheap 28-300? No. Because they're gonna look at the picture and see a good picture. A good picture is a good picture is a good picture no matter what you use. It's about understanding the fundamentals and basics of photography. Another quick tip for you new photographers out there who might get this, get down on the kids' level. Get down here on the kids' level and you're gonna get better results. It's gonna make the kids look bigger, it's gonna make them look better, and the same thing happens when you are shooting sports. Now, let's go a little wider with Asher on his bike. Very similar to the other shot, I just got closer. I'm at 28 millimeters, and this looks like an album cover, man. He looks like a rapper in this one, and even the background here isn't super distracting. I got up close, I composed it properly, we zoom in, he's nice and sharp. That is fantastic. Now let's jump to a super tight portrait of Asher. 300 millimeters, filling the frame, really good composition, nice and sharp on his eyes. We're at 7.1, but again, it doesn't matter. It looks sharp, it looks great. I'm really happy with the results that I got here. Now let me show you what 28 millimeters looks like next to 300 millimeters. So I put Asher in front of this nice wall, nice blue wall with some nice paintings on it. This is 28 millimeters. It looks good. 300 millimeters right there. This is one of those lenses that you could use for anything. You go to the zoo, you got your 28. You want to photograph the elephant's butthole, you can photograph the elephant's butthole. Not at Philadelphia, because there are no elephants in Philadelphia anymore because it was deemed too small of an enclosure and they got sent somewhere else. They were there when I was a little kid. Maybe I have a photo of elephants that I could show you. But here's a picture of me at the zoo as a little Jared. Such a cute little kid. All right, now let's jump out into field hockey, action sports. Because this is a type of lens, like you have kids, they're gonna play soccer, they're gonna play baseball, they're gonna play field hockey, they're gonna play lacrosse, they're gonna play all different types of things. They might play ice hockey, but I can't recommend this lens for shooting indoors because of the bad aperture. This is the type of lens that is going to be great outdoors primarily. You're gonna get better results outside. Now, in terms of autofocus capability, this is a good test. This is action sports, and this lens has a VXD motor, which I didn't have high hopes for. I again didn't have high hopes when I was photographing the field hockey with the Sony A7 IV. The pictures on the back of the screen, they didn't look great. They didn't look great after I was taking them. And I blame Sony for that because they use really bad screens on the back of those, on the back of their cameras. When I got it into the computer, I sat there and I was like, damn, these are actually pretty good. They're sharp and they're in focus, which I didn't expect based off of how I was shooting out in the real world. But for field hockey, you have your 28-300. 28 is only gonna come in handy if you run out on the field before the game and you get a group picture, or you're taking a team photo. That's gonna be great. 300 is good for field hockey. I prefer having 400, but you could still get good results with 300. Now, with that being said, if you're on a crop sensor Sony camera, you will get the 35 millimeter equivalent range of 42 to 450 millimeters. The feeling of more bang for your buck. Now, let's get into the photos out here of field hockey. Look at those beautiful construction equipment in the background. Yeah, that's construction equipment in the background at 7.1 because we're not shooting at 2.8. If we're shooting at 2.8 with a much more expensive lens, we're talking a $10,000 to $12,000 lens, that's not gonna be there. You'll see yellow, but it's not gonna be as much of a distraction. The light poles become a distraction. But for people that are just looking to get better pictures than your cell phone, these are gonna be considered good. She looks sharp enough for my taste, that's fine, picture's good. Autofocus worked pretty well. Continuing on to the next photo, we got an action shot here. We're at 1/3200th of a second at 7.1, ISO 1600. You might find that your ISO is going up a little higher, but if you're setting it to auto, you're setting everything to auto, the camera's gonna just go ahead and do what it needs to do. My recommendation is you set it to auto ISO, you control the shutter speed, and then set the aperture to the lowest aperture, and as you zoom, it's gonna change, and then it's gonna come back to the smaller one as you're zooming. Speaking of zooming, let's zoom in on this field hockey player right here. Nice and sharp. That looks good head to toe. but you could see how the background might be a distraction. That's what happens at 7.1. There's no way around it. That's just the nature of having an f7.1 lens. Let me jump in here real quick and say, are you looking for some actual real deal feedback that's better than your friends saying thumbs up emoji or fire emoji whenever you post your images? If you want some real deal feedback, I am offering 2 different mentorship options over at froknosphoto.com/mentorship. One of them is a 15-minute recorded rapid fire critique where I look at 50 of your images and then send you a video back. And the other is a one-on-one Zoom call that's 45 minutes long where I talk to you directly and give you real deal feedback. So again, if you'd like to sign up for those, head on over to froknosphoto.com/mentorship. Now, let's get back to the video. When I'm shooting on the sideline with just a 400mm, I'm not able to get the players as they get closer to me. So in this case, I was able to zoom back to 99mm, but you can see that the background still becomes a distraction even at 6.3. That's the ongoing theme here with less expensive lenses, with higher apertures, the backgrounds become more distracting. So just try to make sure that you have a cleaner background and you don't have the porta potty behind you or a chain link fence that looks like crap. Find yourself a better background if you're going to be shooting on the field to get better results. Oh, this is my buddy Cayenne. Let's everybody tell Cayenne in the comments that he's using the camera the wrong way. You're supposed to look through the other end of it, not this one right here. A couple more action shots and then we will wrap this up. I'm happy with these results. I didn't expect it to be as sharp and colorful as it is. Now, of course, I used some of our presets from FroPack 1 through FroPack 4 to see which one worked the best. We've got Skittles, Kaleidoscope, Thick, those all work. Universal Soldier, those are great for sports. I like to make sure that my edits are more realistic than using something like saltwater taffy or something that just gives you a weird MDMA look, because we have MDMA as a look as well. Another one at 113mm up close. I'm actually happy with this. As we zoom in on the subject, you can see how sharp her face is. That's a win. So that's good. Like I said, I'm happy with the results that I got. The last photo, the girl whacking the ball towards the net, you can see once again that all of the Gatorade containers are bright and in focus, and all the people in the background. Oh, look, there's a bee. Yeah, there's a bee. I zoomed in. I could see an out of focus bee flying. That's crazy. I didn't see that before. But the picture works, and for someone who just wants a lens to take better pictures than what their cell phone is going to capture, this has done a very good job. Like I said, I wasn't expecting much out of this lens. I know how these mega zooms generally are. They usually aren't the best, but I was pleasantly surprised that it kept up with the field hockey, and the results that I got, I can't complain about. So how much is this lens? $899. Is that expensive? In the grand scheme of things, it's a one lens to roll them all for someone who's going to be either traveling, photographing their kids. It's not something I would use as a professional. But if you need something light, compact, but still going to give you good results outdoors that are better than your phone, like we keep repeating and saying, then this is a very nice choice. $899 is not bad, because think about it. You need to buy a $350 lens for one thing and a $500 lens for another thing. You're at your $899 and you have 2 different lenses. Now, the other lenses that are available from Tamron, because they have 8 billion of them in this range, you've got the 28 to 200, 28 to 5.6 is $800. 50 to 300 is 4.5 to 6.3 is $899, same as this. There's a 70 to 300 for $549, and there's also a 50 to 400, which is more bang for your buck, which would be a much bigger lens, comes in at $1,300. So there's a lot of decisions to make, but still 2 very important tests to do. We've got the sniff test and we've got the wind tunnel test. What should we start with, Steven?
Sniff test.
All right, let's give it a sniffy sniff. Mr. Softy smell. It's kind of like that smell if you put your head underneath the soft serve ice cream and you started sniffing. Yeah, vanilla soft serve. Ooh, that's a sweet, sweet smell. All right, wind tunnel test. I'm gonna huff and puff and blow because this is important. It moved. It moved. It fails the wind tunnel test. But don't let that deter you on deciding on if this lens is for you, because that's just the wind tunnel test. So out of all of the lenses that I just told you, do you go with the 28 to 300? I think having a larger range with a smaller lens that is very similar in aperture to the other ones and very similar in price kind of makes sense. If you're someone who isn't looking to be a pro photographer. If you're looking to step up your game, if you're shooting indoors because you want to photograph your kids playing ice hockey, this is not the lens for you. Indoor photography is not going to be great with this because of that 7.1. Your pictures are going to look like garbage because honestly, you don't know what you're doing. If you don't know what you're doing and you're just new, you're not going to get great results with this indoors. You're going to get okay results with this outdoors. You're going to throw this, I think it works. An $899 lens, I mean, yeah, would I like to spend less money? Sure, but if you want better quality, it's gonna cost you more money. If you're just someone who wants to take pictures, set it and forget it, get better results than your phone, this is gonna be the one that you should look at if you're picking up a Sony camera. So which lens would you go with? Let me know down below, let me know why, and also if you have any questions or comments, please leave them in the comments as well. Thank you very much for watching. Jared, PolinPhonosPhoto.com. See ya.